Hey everyone, my name is Marcus White and I'm here today at the Courtyard, which is my practice in Huddersfield. We're a 7-surgery private practice, and over the last decade we've become very, very digital. And what that means is we've got an intraoral scanner in each of our treatment rooms, and we've also accidentally built an on-site digital lab. So we've got a lot of digital designers that we can access, and the big game changer of late has been accessibility to 3D printing and the ability for those 3D printers to print definitive restorations. And what I mean by that is final crowns, final veneers, and final implant crowns for our patients. And that's what I look forward to talking to you about today. We've had the Sprintray printer for about 6 months, but as is typical for us, the only way we really feel we can explore a new piece of technology is to go all in. So in the same way that when we got our first digital intraoral scanner 10 years ago, the way that we went all in on that was that I stopped ordering putty right away, so that all my associates had no option, no choice but to use the scanner. So now, fast forward 10 years, if we're going to really see the ability, the capability of a 3D printer, well then we have to test it in all the ways that we would truly find out its worth, and that's as many treatments as possible on as many patients as possible. So for us, one of the most common treatments and bread and butter treatments of any dental practice is the posterior crown, right? So over the years, that crown has taken a lot of forms. It might have been a porcelain fused to metal in the olden days. It might have been a gold crown going back even further. It might have been some sort of horrible metal alloy, none of which were perfect materials, right? More recently, porcelain materials might have been zirconia or Emax. So the question was, how will a 3D printed material line up against those other historic materials? And we've been keen to find out, and so have our patients. One of the key aspects there is that our patients trust us. They trust us to be innovative for their benefit, not just because it's a fun toy or a gimmick. They know that we're going to embrace technology because we believe it's going to deliver better care for them. And in the case of our patients, and what you're going to see today is speed and efficiency, a single visit instead of multiple visits, no loose temporary crown that could possibly fall off, and a material that is not new to dentistry. 3D print is fundamentally a composite material, which we've been evolving, dentistry's been evolving for the last 20 to 30 years. So there's nothing new about that. It's simply the way it can be fabricated that's going to change dentistry. So I'm really excited to be able to show a case today. We've got a very willing patient who's come in for a 1-hour crown, which is what we call it, where fundamentally we're going to have a 30-minute prep appointment, a 1-hour lead time on the design, fabrication and print of the crown, and then we're going to have a 30-minute appointment to fit the crown itself. We've got some easy to understand marketing for patients, to start getting them used to the notion and the idea of what printing a crown while they wait might look and feel like. Full disclosure, we have tested this crown just a moment ago, and we can assure you the fit was very accurate, such that it was a struggle to remove. So we won't be repeating that, and we're going to go straight in with the cement now. Hopefully an exciting showcase of what a very common treatment can be elevated to with this technology, but also real world, real problems, real patients in a real practice. You get that lovely click. The big question is, is it changing the way we treat and plan our patients? In today's example, it's not changing the treatment plan per se. The patient needs a crown, they're still getting a crown. It's just the way that we deliver it's different. But the more that we play with the material and the concept, it is starting to pose interesting questions to us and to dentistry, basically. And those questions are around the fact that, historically, going back to, to the olden days, there was a concept of the stronger a material we put on the tooth, the more protected that tooth's going to be, right? So whether it's a gold crown or a really solid, thick metal crown, or a porcelain fused to metal crown, well, the idea was that that will protect the crown because it's super strong. But what we know as dentists is that, you know, when a patient asks me how long is the crown going to last, I sometimes say, well, forever, but the tooth underneath might not. And we've seen, you know, over the decades that the crown will survive, but it might fracture the tooth with it. And that's not an optimal outcome, is it? The patient comes in with a crown in their hand and says, what are we going to do now? And you say, well, not so much. There's nothing to stick it back onto. So when 3D print came around and I started lecturing on the topic, and dentists would say, well, how strong is it, Marcus? You know, and is it strong enough? And I'm now beginning to think that that's the wrong question. And really, the question should be, you know, maybe the fact that it's a gentler material is better. If we use amalgam fillings as a good analogy, well, we've already learned that sticking a massive lump of metal into a tooth is only ever going to lead to its fracture, right? Because we're putting something too strong in a softer material. And we've already learned the lesson that putting composite, a bonded material inside the tooth is going to protect it and going to help it survive longer. So that's what I believe we're going to learn from 3D printed crowns. And therefore, going back to the question, is it changing our treatment planning? For me now, if I choose to put a 3D printed crown on an implant, then I know that the printed crown is going to wear at a gentler rate and not impart overly powerful forces to the implant and the bone around it. If I have a root treated tooth, maybe I actually want to restore it with the crown first to establish integrity, restorability, coronal seal, and allow my endodontist, you know, really neat tooth to be able to isolate. And then she can access a tooth through the printed crown because it's very easy to do so, and carry out a treatment and really flipping a lot of our previous concepts on their head. So on that note, you know, what I'd asked dentists to do and invite dentists to do is really ask some serious questions about what's good and bad in 20th century dentistry. And some of the materials that we've evolved, like I say, composite, are working really well in aesthetic and functional areas. So the ability to have a machine and a piece of technology that can manufacture with accuracy an inlay, a posterior crown, a composite bond veneer, could that bring benefits to you, your treatments and your patients? And I think you're going to find the answer is yes on a lot of those fronts. So, the instant impact of 3D print on our patients and on our staff as well. You know, it's not a strange or unique problem for a patient to ring up and say, I've broken a crown, or something's come off, a crown or a veneer's come off, and maybe they've lost it. So the traditional solution to that would you get them in, you'd have to scan them, take an impression, do a temporary, take an hour doing that, etc. So now our whole practice is used to the fact that we can now 3D print on demand. So the first question they ask us is, you know, did we make the original crown? Because we've been designing and manufacturing with our lab for 10 years. So if we have the file, then all we need to do is reprint it. So there's this brand new future proofing that our patients have, where they know that if something happens, we say book them in after 2 p.m, give us an hour or two to print the crown, and they come in and we just put it straight back on. And can you imagine the loyalty that creates between the patient and the practice, where they know you haven't just got the skill set to assess them, but you've got technology and machinery that can remake, you know, what they need. And so that's the kind of instant impact that our patients are feeling.
Everything went smoothly. I can't say I had any problems with it. Taking the tooth down only took about 20 minutes, 5 minutes, and the crown was done. It was a brilliant procedure by Marcus White, and the Courtyard Clinic is brilliant. Thank you.
What would I say to principals considering getting a 3D printer? The first thing of important is, look, everyone's a professional, everyone's got their own set of patients in their own town, in their own practice. So, you know, everyone has to consider it on their own merits. That's the first thing. Secondly, I'm not in the business of telling other professionals what they should do. What I try and do instead is go all in at my practice because I know my patients trust me to deliver the best for them. And then I try and come back with some data, some experiences that I can share with the greater public and the world of dentistry so that they can make a more informed decision on the back of my experiences. And my experiences have all been positive, and so have my patients. And when we think about why we take a risk, because adding new technology, adding new processes to your system, it's a risk. So if we ask ourselves why we do that, you have to come up with the answer that you truly believe that patients are going to benefit both now and in the long term. And I've seen that borne out in the patients, in the 250 crowns we fitted to date, and in the patient feedback we've had as well. For them, it truly is a game changer when they can come and have a definitive final crown done in one day, or a get out of jail card where maybe they've broken a crown, but they're going on holiday the next day. Yeah. They wouldn't want to go on holiday with nothing. They wouldn't want to go on holiday with a temporary, but you can deliver a final crown and have them be incredibly grateful that you and your practice invested in that new technology.